It's a three-pronged attack. Subliminal, liminal, and superliminal.
Superliminal?
I'll show you. Hey, you!
Read Dance of Frozen Death, available on Amazon Kindle. Link in the description.
Yeah, all right.
I'm in.
The following contains spoilers for Breaking Bad, but not Better Call Saul, so that's a win. You have been warned. Greetings, fellow mortals. Going into the new year, I like to reflect on the previous year. I think about every significant interaction that I had and contemplate whether or not I feel like I have the right perspective on things. I don't do regrets, but I do view moments as lessons. What can I learn from something? Should I have taken other people's perspectives into account? What was going on in the heads of the people around me? Would a little bit more empathy change my perspective on things? Well, normally not. When I go out into the wild world, I tend to be too quiet and polite to actually be a jerk to people, even if the urge is there, especially when I go downtown. But I don't act on those baser instincts. Usually, I tend to try to view things from other people's perspectives. Someone could be having the worst day of their life for all that I know, although I will readily remember when I got flipped off by a driving instructor for having the gall to go the speed limit around their student. That was funny. I don't know what happened in their lives to get them to that point, but that's hilarious. Of course, my desire to see things in other people's perspectives extends to my love of storytelling.
Roll credits.
One show that demonstrated the amazing power of perspective last year was Better Call Saul. I know, shocker, I really like that show. I talk about it a lot. Sue me. It's just better than anything else. I like quality and things that have a lot of hard work put into it. I will probably never shut up about it until I die. But this video isn't actually about Better Call Saul. It's actually about Breaking Bad. One of the many things that Better Call Saul did was help me see Walter White from the perspective of other characters. The show made us understand Saul, Mike, and Gus far more than the original series. Not that they were shallow in Breaking Bad, but Better Call Saul increased their depth to the size of oceans. In a lot of ways, I feel like I understand those three characters better than I even understand Walter White and Jesse Pinkman. But that's what Better Call Saul does. It puts the entirety of Breaking Bad into perspective. It makes me think about everything that happens in a different light. Well, it's not like I didn't get it before, but it's even better now that all the shows and movies are completed. Except that there was one loose end. Now, that was intentional. The writers didn't completely show what happened to Walter's family. Of course, there were hints based off of what was shown in the finale. Walter's kids will get his money. Their lives will be hard living under his shadow, but I think that they will overcome it. Also, I think that Walter Jr. will probably change his name at some point. Could you imagine going to college and having all the professors pause when they get to your name? That would just suck. But Skyler probably won't ever completely get out from Walter's shadow. Even after Walter's death, she's going to be watched by the government for the rest of her life. If she steps even a fraction of a toe out of line, she'll be in a lot of trouble. Everyone is going to know her as the drug lord's wife. Skyler White is going to be almost as infamous as Heisenberg, not to mention that her relationship with her sister will forever be strained, if not shattered forever. Walt Jr. will resent her for the rest of her life. Holly will be confused throughout her entire childhood. And worst of all, the audience will think of Skyler as the most unlikable character in the entire franchise, other than Chuck at least.
That's rough, buddy.
But does she deserve that type of treatment? Does she deserve to be hated the same way that Chuck is? I mean, she's a flawed person. She could be very controlling, before the Heisenberg transformation. She's hypocritical many times, not to mention that she's kind of dumb. All of the plans that she makes are kind of ridiculous. If Walt or Saul isn't directing her about what to do, she makes a huge mess of things. But being dumb isn't a sin. Jesse's one of the dumbest people in the show many times, mostly because he's too lazy to think, but he's still beloved.
I'm surrounded by idiots.
It's not like Skyler is irredeemably awful. She cares about her family more than anything. She will do anything for her kids. She's stubborn in a good way at times. She knows what she wants. She's an excellent accountant and is great with money in a way that puts most other characters to shame. And before Walter White falls off the rails, she does love him and support him through his cancer. I think that a lot of the problems come from the target audience. Breaking Bad is a Western in a lot of ways. The target audience of that genre in crime dramas are men. Not all, of course. If you're a woman that loves everything Breaking Bad, that is fantastic. It doesn't change that you're not the target audience. Like how shonen manga are targeted to young boys. Like how Love is Blind is targeted to women. Like how My Little Pony is targeted at little girls. But we all know how that one goes. So, Breaking Bad is a more masculine-leaning show where the wife is an antagonistic, nagging force that gets in the way of the main character's plan. She's keeping him from doing what we want to see. It's no wonder that people hated her. It should have been expected. Not to the point where they should have ever attacked the actress, but I can remember feeling annoyed every time that Skyler was on screen when I first watched Breaking Bad. That first viewing was a long time ago, though. Years later, I can look back with a new perspective. Her perspective. Truly, the only bad things that Skyler did up until Walter pulled her into the criminal world was smoke while she was pregnant and have terrible taste in men. Just awful. But that's kind of victim shaming. Skyler was abused by Walter in almost every way possible other than him hitting her. But the emotional abuse was as deep as it goes.
Yeah. Wow, that's messed up.
Think of it from her point of view. She married a man with a very successful career path, which fell apart because of his own ego. She herself was a successful accountant that left her firm because her boss was being a creep to her. This is unconfirmed, but it seems like this was the case. She worked hard as a mother and wife to care for her family. Things weren't perfect, but she made it work. They had a happy life until her husband was diagnosed with lung cancer. She tries to be supportive until he starts pushing her away and acting strangely. His anger escalates to new, previously unseen heights. He lies, disappears, and gets access to money that previously didn't exist. Then you find out he's gotten into the drug trade. After he recovers from his surgery, she leaves him in order to protect herself and the children, but he won't let her go. He digs his claws into her kids and makes her seem like the bad guy.
You're the bad guy?
Or, well, girl.
Stuck in the same house with the man that she hates, she tries to get the kids out of the house as often as possible in order to keep them safe from Walter. In an act of rebellion, Skyler gives her affection and intercourse to her boss because it's the only thing that she has control left. Because Walter has taken everything else from her and she can't turn him in because it would crush her kids and ruin her family. And despite everything, Skyler wasn't willing to lie and say that Walter was physically hurting her. She could have lied, but people would have figured out that she was lying anyway. Doing anything to her physically was the one line Walter never crossed unless she attacked first. Not to mention that she didn't understand his role in the criminal world completely. He had friends that could get her out in a minute as far as she knew. In fact, Walter might turn it around somehow and take the kids from her. In every way possible, Skyler was a victim stuck without a way to fight back. You could argue that she should have just turned Walter into the cops or not filtered his money. It would have been the right thing to do, but by the time that she could have done all that, Walter was already connected to Gus, and you know that Gus wouldn't have reacted to her rebellion well at all.
I will kill your wife. I will kill your son. I will kill your infant daughter.
Then, in season 5, Walter was in charge of everything. What was Skyler supposed to do? She was in too deep. She was doomed. All she could do was wait for Walter to die. Then her brother-in-law discovered the truth, and she was pitted against her own family. Trapped, afraid, and having a bit of Stockholm Syndrome, all she could do was listen to Walter until he brought ruin to everything. Then her name, her children, and her life were dragged through the mud. The feds owned her. She could never work as an accountant again. All she had left was a desperate attempt to make a better life for her children. All of this isn't to say that Skyler was the best person ever. She made plenty of mistakes. She was naive and stupid. She wasn't ready for the criminal underworld or to do anything immoral, but she never signed up for that. We could blast her for her decisions to stay with Walt, but I don't think that's fair. How many women stay in abusive relationships because they feel that they have no choice, because the man won't let the children go, because the system has failed them? There isn't anything about Breaking Bad that I would change, other than maybe some of the camera work in the early seasons. Sorry, I hate a shaking camera, and the plane crash, but I made a video about that already. So I wouldn't rewrite Breaking Bad to show more of Skyler's perspective, and I don't know if even a movie about her would be appropriate. Perhaps that's fitting though. Despite her best efforts, she wasn't an active participant in the story. She was a victim, and maybe thinking about her in a different perspective will help us understand Skyler and Breaking Bad even better. But what do you think? Am I completely off base here? Do you hate Skyler beyond reason? Do you think that she's a well-written character? Please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your perspectives. And thank you so much for watching. If you like my takes on storytelling, please consider subscribing and liking the video. It would really help me out. Also, please remember that I just released my original novel, Dance of Frozen Death, Book 1 in the Written in Stone series. Link in the description. I hope that you will check it out. I appreciate you. Do not despair.